So personality theory meaning attempt to describe and explain how people are similar or how they are different and why every individual is unique. All right? So we have different perspectives in personality. Psychoanalytic, importance of unconscious processes and childhood experiences. Humanistic, importance of self and fulfillment of potential. Social cognitive, importance of beliefs about self. And then trait theory, description and measurement of personality differences. So those are the 4 perspectives that you need to use for your paper assignment, which I'll give next week. That you basically analyze your own personality and use one of those theories to explain your personality. Okay, good. If you feel like using 2, that's fine too. It doesn't need to be just 1. But usually my student likes one of them the most. That's why I say 1, okay? But it's not limited to, all right? So, psychoanalytic approach, of course developed by Sigmund Freud, okay? Psychoanalysis is both an approach to therapy and a theory of personality. So next week we talk about therapy too, okay? But this week we talk about this one. It emphasizes unconscious motivation. The main causes of behavior lie buried in the unconscious mind. So we have 3 personality components: ego, superego, and id. Okay, and ego is the rational, planful, mediating dimension of personality. It's conscious, meaning you are aware of it. So your ego is awareness. Superego, just below ego. Moralistic, judgmental, perfectionist dimension of personality. That's pre-conscious, meaning information that can easily be made conscious with an effort. Then id, irrational, illogical, impulsive dimension of personality. Unconscious thoughts, feelings, urges, and wishes that are difficult to bring to conscious awareness. This is unconscious, okay? So psychoanalytic approach, okay? Conscious, all things we are aware of at any given moment. That's ego, okay? Pre-conscious, everything that can, with a little effort, be brought into consciousness. That's superego, your moralistic value. Okay. Then id, unconscious, inaccessible warehouse of anxiety-producing thoughts and drives. Okay. So id is instinctual drives present at birth, does not distinguish between reality and fantasy yet, and then operates according to the pleasure principle. So babies are id-oriented because they don't have the logical sense yet. So they cry when they're hungry. They cry, they need to be changed. It's more id-oriented. Then ego develops out of the id in infancy. Understands reality and logic, mediated between id and superego. Okay? Then superego is the internalization of society's moral standards, responsible for guilt. So for instance, if a child touches the candy bar without asking his or her parents, then if the parents found out, then the child might feel guilty of doing that without telling his parents or her parents. That's the superego, all right? All right. So id is the pleasure principle, okay? Drive toward immediate gratification, most fundamental human motive. So sources of energy can be eros, life instinct, perpetuates life, thanatos, death instinct, aggression, self-destructive actions, libido, sexual energy for or motivation. That's id. Then ego, reality principle, ability to postpone gratification in accordance with demands of reality. Ego, rational, organized, logical, mediator to demands of reality, can repress desires that cannot be met in an acceptable manner. All right? Superego, conscious. Internalization of societal and parental values, partially unconscious, can be harshly punitive using feelings of guilt. All right. So we all use defense mechanisms, okay? This is an unconscious mental processes employed by the ego to reduce our anxiety. And we have different types of defense mechanisms. Repression, the complete exclusion from consciousness of anxiety-producing thoughts, feelings, or impulses. Most basic defense mechanism. Meaning, you try to forget about it. 3 years after being hospitalized for back surgery, the person can remember only vague details about the event. Otherwise, that will make the person very anxious about maybe they might have to have the surgery again. They don't want to think about it, okay? So they try to forget about what happened the day that they are in the hospital. Displacement. Emotional impulses are redirected toward a substitute person or object, usually one less threatening or dangerous than the original source of conflict. So, example is, angered by a neighbor's hateful comment, a mother spanks her daughter for accidentally spilling her milk. Okay. Sublimation, a form of displacement in which sexual urges are rechanneled into productive non-sexual activities. A graduate student works on her thesis 14 hours a day while her husband is on an extended business trip. Okay, that's sublimation. Rationalization, justifying one's actions or feelings with socially acceptable explanations rather than consciously acknowledge one's true motives or desires. After being rejected by a prestigious university, a student explains that he is glad because he would be happy at the smaller, less competitive college. Instead of admitting that, shoot, I didn't make it to the university, like Harvard. Okay. But he got accepted to BC. Although he's disappointed, he says, BC is smaller, nice school, academically still competitive, but not as, maybe as famous as Harvard, right? Okay, that's the thinking here, all right? Projection, oh, by the way, Harvard. I was rejected by Harvard, but I got accepted to Columbia, and then BU. Actually, I applied 5 PhD programs when I was a student. Harvard, Columbia, Tufts, BU, BC. I got accepted to BU and Columbia. I was rejected by Harvard, BC, and Tufts. And I ended up going to BU, not Columbia, although I loved it when I went to the open house. And then I had I-20 because I was an international student being accepted to a PhD program, but I didn't go because I decided to stay at BU because I went to master's at BU, and I have my husband to be and also my professors there, like my parents, so I decided to stay. But my explanation was because of that, and I felt comfortable with them, so not like that, but some people, because of the name value, they go to Harvard or Columbia rather than BU, BC, but all right, so projection. The attribution of one's own unacceptable urges or qualities to others. Example, a married woman who is sexually attracted to a coworker accuses him of flirting with her instead. Okay, instead of admitting that she's attracted to him, she says, he's flirting with me, right? That's projection, okay? Reaction formation. Thinking or behaving in a way that is the extreme opposite of unacceptable urges or impulses. This one you will say, yes, Threatened by the awakening sexual attraction to girls, adolescent boys often go out of their way to tease and torment adolescent girls rather than admitting they like those girls. All right? That's reaction formation. Denial. The failure to recognize and acknowledge the existence of anxiety-provoking information. I'm sure you're aware of what denial is. An alcoholic fails to acknowledge that he's addicted to a drug. Undoing, a form of unconscious repentance that involves neutralizing or atoning for an unacceptable action or thought with a second action or thought. A woman who gets a tax refund by cheating on her taxes makes a larger than usual donation to the church collection on the following Sunday. So she felt guilt that she cheated and got money back. So because of that guilt, she donated more than usual to feel compensated. Okay. Regression. Retreating to a behavior pattern characteristic of an earlier stage of development. So, for example, after her parents' bitter divorce, a 10-year-old girl refuses to sleep alone in her room, crawling into bed with her mother. Another example is that when the new baby comes home with a mom, the older sibling starts acting like a baby, like putting the pacifier back on, because they're anxious that the parent's attention will be on to the new baby, not to him or her. Makes sense to you? That's called regression. All right? Very good. Then, psychosexual stages. Of course, anything Freud related to psychosexual stuff, okay? So Freud's 5 stages of personality development, each associated with the particular erogenous zone. Fixation meaning an attempt to achieve pleasure as an adult in ways that are equivalent to how it was achieved in these stages. Okay. So oral stage, birth to 1 year. Mouth is associated with sexual pleasure. So weaning a child can lead to fixation if not handled correctly. So fixation can lead to oral activities in adulthood. They might be having some obsession with like oral sex, for instance, if they didn't, pass the stage correctly. That's how Freud was thinking. Okay. Anal stage 1 to 3. Anus is associated with pleasure. Toilet training can lead to fixation if not handled correctly. So fixation can lead to anal retentive or explosive behaviors in adulthood. Okay. Then phallic stage 3 to 5. This one is much easier for you to understand too.
I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
I know you got it. You got it, right?
No, I didn't get that.
Focus of pleasure shifts to the genitals. So Oedipus or Electra complex can occur. What is Oedipus complex? Have you read Shakespeare before? What's Oedipus complex? A son is in love with a mother. And then Electra is opposite. A daughter is in love with the father. Okay. Fixation can lead to excessive masculinity in males and the need for attention or domination in females. All right. Then latency stage 5 to puberty. Sexuality is repressed at this stage. So what they do is children participate in hobbies, school, and same-sex friendships. They try to forget about sex differences. Then the puberty on. Sexual feelings re-emerge and are oriented towards others. Healthy adults find pleasure in love and work. Fixated adults have their energy tied up in earlier stages, such as anus stage, okay, or oral stage. Then we have post-Freudian psychodynamic theories, okay, Jung, Honey, and then Alfred Adler, okay. So Carl Jung, okay, more general psychic energy. So he's the one who brought universality of themes, archetypes. So if I say great mother, what is the example of great mother? Like, how about Mother Teresa? Or how about heroes? What are the... Yeah.
Mother Teresa's a mother? I mean,
The great mother. I said great mother.
Oh.
Or how about like heroes? So archetypes meaning the theme can be very universal. Makes sense to you? Like if you say the great...
Something like ideal?
Yeah, ideal or the, like a symbol of that.
A person that you look up to.
Right. So great mother. If I said Mother Teresa, everybody is like, yeah, definitely. No matter what culture. No, that's okay. It's like, no matter what culture you're coming from. Like if you know Mother Teresa,
Yeah.
they know that, she's very patient, she's beyond being a mother figure. It's more like a great mother, like it's more human rights oriented. She's devoted to save those children and so forth, All right. Then collective unconscious meaning human collective evolutionary history. Collective meaning group oriented. Unconscious is unaware of. So for instance, if the earthquake happens, people try to stay calm, like go under the table not to be hit by the object, and afterwards if tsunami is coming, you run to the high place that you don't hit by tsunami. Like those stuff without telling each other. They know basically how to survive based on the natural disaster, for instance. And he was the first one to describe introverts and extroverts, which is related to the trait, okay, which I'll explain later. Then Hone looked at anxiety related to security and social relationships. So she said the basic anxiety is the feeling of being isolated and helpless in a hostile world. It's not like Karen Hone was the student of Freud, but she's not just following his step. She's much more healthier than Freud. Freud was tied up with sexual urges and then feelings, but she's more basic, like human relationships, social relationships. So moving toward against away from other people. So social relationships. Then Adler. Most fundamental human motive is striving for superiority. So superior complex, inferior complex, right? Okay. So arises from universal feelings of inferiority that are experienced during childhood. So overcompensation may cause superiority complex where a person exaggerates achievements and importance. So it's completely opposite from inferiority complex. So this one, I have an example for you. When I was a PhD candidate at NBU, my office mate, she's from South and she was very insecure. So what she did was superiority complex. She was threatened by other PhD candidate. So whatever she said was like, oh, my research is the best, much better than the other PhD candidates. Everybody will know when I do defense, my dissertation. Nobody knew when she finished, she just disappeared. Also, when she found out that I was dating with my husband-to-be, she told me he's too good for me. Because she was so jealous that I have someone in my life, but she didn't. And she's from South, so she had this submissive behaviors to begin with. She was raised in this family that, she cannot expect to have good, but she had to exaggerate her achievement to compensate her inferiority like that, or insecurity like that. So that was very interesting to see. So evaluation of psychoanalysis. Evidence is inadequate. Data are not available or able to be reviewed. Very subjective oriented. So theory is not testable. Lack of operational definitions. Good at explaining past because Freud was talking about, that's okay, childhood experiences, but not a prediction what's going to happen in the future based on that. And then sexism is the big one. Believed that women were weak and inferior. That's how Freud was seeing women because he had complex with women, okay? He had problems with women. Use male psyche as basis for all people. That's why too. The humanistic perspective from chapter 8 or modules 15 and 16, okay? Free will, self-awareness, psychological growth. So Maslow and Rogers are the big names in humanistic approach. So Rogers said actualizing tendency, meaning innate drive to maintain and enhance the human organism. And self-concept is the set of perceptions you hold about yourself, like self-esteem, okay? Positive regard, conditional and unconditional. So that's the hierarchy you learned from modules 15 and 16 last week, okay? The same thing. So evaluating humanism. Difficult to test or validate scientifically and tends to be too optimistic minimizing some of the more destructive aspects of human nature. But in therapy, humanistic approach is very, very variable. Okay. As you know, personality chapter is related to therapy section of the book so much too, overlap. Then social cognitive perspective. The importance of observational learning, which everybody does every day, conscious cognitive processes, social experience, which every day we do too, and self-efficacy and reciprocal determinism in personality. That model is that explains personality as the result of behavioral, cognitive, and environmental interactions. Okay. Self-efficacy meaning the belief that people have about their ability to meet demands of a specific situation too. So right here, cognitive factors, behavioral factors, environmental factors. So let's say I just use a different approach here, but the same concept. Cognitive factors, you know that recycling is very important. That's your cognition. Then your behavior is, I will recycle to, save some trees and stuff. Environmental factor, that helps the earth. It's a big picture, but it's related to all three. Makes sense to you? Personality too. Okay? Let's say your personality is, I liked one of those words, like let's say kind. Okay? Your cognition is kind. And your behavior, you're kind to other people. Environmentally too, you are raised in a family that they're very kind too. So your personality trait as kind is very consistent, as you can see. Make sense to you? Very good. So, evaluation of social cognitive perspective. This is well grounded in empirical love research, but love experiences are rather simple and may not reflect the complexity of human interactions. So, ignores the influences of unconscious emotions and conflicts. So, as you can see, no theory is perfect, but there are pros and cons anyway. Then trait and type theories. Trait, relatively stable predisposition to behave in a certain way. Surface trait, characteristic that can be inferred from observable behavior. Source trait, most fundamental dimensions of personality, relatively few. What do you think about my personality? Can you tell me what my personality is? Strong. Outgoing. Independent. Fun. Outspoken. Kind. Nice, guys. Thank you. I like that. But those are the characteristics that you see from me. So it's called surface trait. But nobody said that you are stubborn. You know why? My trait, I am stubborn, but I don't show it to people. But my parents, my husband, they will say, yes, she's definitely stubborn. Because they know the core of my personality. Here I'm a professor, so I try not to show my stubbornness to be egocentric, but try to be more positive role model for my students. So the way you explain to me surface trait, because that's how you observe me in this situation. But at home, I can be much more stubborn than being objective, okay? Although I'm very objective to begin with, at home too. But anyway. Then we have a theorist on trait theory, Cattell, Einzek, and Costa. Cattell used factor analysis to come up with 16 basic personality traits, so PM, okay? You already saw it, so I don't have to explain, okay? Then Einzek, okay? Only 3 different source traits, but it is considered as too few traits. That's why it came with 5-factor model, okay? This is the one widely used. Okay, so 5, ocean, okay? So it can be, if you are extroverted and stable, the word can be like, the traits can be sociable, outgoing, talkative, responsive, easygoing, lively, carefree, leadership, okay? And if you're extroverted but neurotic, it can be touchy, restless, aggressive, excitable, changeable, impulsive, optimistic, active. So those are the traits, okay? All right. Then behavioral genetics. interdisciplinary field that studies the effects of genes and heredity on behavior. Okay? Heredity seems to play a role in 4 of the big 5 personality traits: extraversion, neuroticism, openness to experience, and conscientiousness. Okay. So evaluation of trait perspective again. Sorry, I have a little special guest right there. Don't really explain personality, but simply describe the behaviors. Doesn't describe the development of the behaviors. So trait approaches generally fail to address how issues such as motives, unconscious, or beliefs about self-affected personality development. Okay. Then we use personality assessment, okay, like projective techniques, like interpretation of ambiguous image used to determine unconscious motives, conflicts, and psychological traits. And the ink blot test, okay, presentation and interpretation of a series of black and white and the colored ink blots. So for instance, this image. Then based on your answers, I will, analyze your personality and then some issues that you're dealing with. Another one is TAT, series of pictures depicting ambiguous scenes, and participant is asked to create a story about the scene. Then answers are scored based on themes, motives, and anxieties of main character. So you see this picture, you have to make up a story to me, and then I'll explain what it means to you, basically afterwards. So we have drawbacks to projective test. Examiner or test situation may influence individual's response. Also, scoring is highly subjective, as you can see. And tests fail to produce consistent results. And also, tests are poor predictors of future behaviors. There's self-report inventory, psychological tests in which an individual answers standardized questions about their behavior and feelings. And the answers are then compared to established norms. MMPI, okay, most widely used self-report inventory. Originally designed to assess mental health and detect psychological symptoms, has over 500 questions to which person must reply true or false, and include lying scales too. Okay. So the strengths of those self-reports, standardized. Each person receives same instructions in response to the same questions. So use of established norms, results are compared to previously established norms and are not subjectively evaluated. Then evidence that people can fake responses to look better or worse as one of the weaknesses. Then tests contain hundreds of items and become tedious. Definitely 500 questions, we're gonna be tedious, definitely. It's just boring and then too much. So people may not be as good judges of their own behavior too sometimes. Okay, so that was personality chapter.